Hi, I'm Ron Jones from Lean Berets. I am a historical kinesiologist, and I'm also the physical education historian for the La Sierra High PE Film Documentary Project. In our research on La Sierra, and La Sierra, if you don't know, was the last great PE program in America from the early 1960s under the direction of Coach Stan Laprate. In our research the last 3 years, we've uncovered some fascinating documentation and facts. And one of the things that's interesting was the relationship between Stan Laprate, La Sierra High School, and President John F. Kennedy. JFK really put La Sierra up front as the gold standard for physical education for the nation to follow. And we'll be talking more about that in the actual film when it comes out. But I'm going to read you an article that JFK wrote in December of 1960 as the president-elect. This is a very historic article, and it's very well written. And looking at some other things that JFK did in film and print, I know it was a very heartfelt message for him. And a little bit of backstory about JFK being a student of history and fitness. He was coming out of some pretty significant pain with his back. He had some war injuries and some other things that went on in his previous life, was in a lot of pain, but he was making a comeback. And so his passion for that vigorous life that he talked about was also a personal experience of growing up as an athlete and then coming back out of that later in life through exercise. And I think that's an important piece of the backstory. But let me read this. It's The Soft American by President John F. Kennedy, December 26, 1960. Beginning more than 2,500 years ago, from all quarters of the Greek world, men thronged every 4 years to the sacred grove of Olympia, under the shadow of Mount Cronus, to compete in the most famous athletic contest of history, the Olympic Games. During the contest of sacred truce was observed among all the states of Greece as the best athletes of the Western world competed in boxing and foot races, wrestling and chariot races for the wreath of wild olive, which was the prize of victory. When the winners returned to their home cities and laid the Olympic crowns in the chiefs' temples, they were greeted as heroes and received rich awards. For the Greeks prized physical excellence and athletic skills among man's great goals and among the prime foundations of a vigorous state. Thus, the same civilizations which produced some of our highest achievements of philosophy and drama, government and art, also gave us a belief in the importance of physical soundness, which has become part of Western tradition, from the mens sana in corpore sano of the Romans to the British belief that the playing fields of Eton brought victory to the battlefields of Europe. This knowledge, the knowledge that the physical well-being of the citizen is an important foundation for the vigor and vitality of all the activities of the nation, is as old as Western civilization itself, but in a knowledge which today in America we are in danger of forgetting. The first indication of a decline in the physical strength and ability of young Americans became apparent among the United States soldiers in the early stages of the Korean War. The second came when figures were released showing that almost 1 out of every 2 young Americans was being rejected by selective service as mentally, morally, or physically unfit. But the most startling demonstration of the general physical decline of American youth came when Dr. Hans Kraus and Dr. Sonia Weber revealed the results of 15 years of research centering in the Posture Clinic of New York's Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. Results of the physical fitness test given to 4,264 children in this country and 2,870 children in Austria, Italy, and Sweden. The findings showed that despite our unparalleled standard of living, despite our good food and our many playgrounds, despite our emphasis on school athletics, Americans lagged far behind Europeans in physical fitness. 6 tests for muscular strength and flexibility were given. 57.9% of the American children failed one or more of these tests, while only 8.7% of the European youngsters failed. A consistent decline. Especially disheartening were the results of 5 strength tests. 35.7% of American children failed one or more of these, while only 1.1% of Europeans failed. And among Austrian and Swiss youth, the rate of failure was as low as 0.5%. As a result of the alarming Krauss-Weber findings, President Eisenhower created a Council on Youth Fitness at the cabinet level and appointed a Citizens Advisory Committee on the Fitness of American Youth, composed of prominent citizens interested in fitness. Over the past 5 years, the physical fitness of American youth has been discussed in forums, by committees, and leading publications. A 10-point program for physical fitness has been publicized and promoted. Our schools have been urged to give increased attention to the physical well-being of their students, yet there has been no noticeable improvement. Physical fitness tests conducted last year in Britain and Japan showed that the youth of those countries were considerably more fit than our own children. And the annual physical fitness tests for freshmen at Yale University show a consistent decline in the prowess of young Americans. 51% of the class of 1951 passed these tests, 43% of the class of 1956 passed, and only 38%, a little more than a third, of the class of 1960 succeeded in passing the not overly rigorous examination. Of course, physical fitness tests are not infallible. They can distort the true health picture. There are undoubtedly many American youths and adults whose physical fitness matches and exceeds the best of other lands. But the harsh fact of the matter is that there is also an increasingly large number of Americans who are neglecting their bodies, whose physical fitness is not what it should be, who are getting soft. And such softness on the part of individual citizens can help to strip and destroy the vitality of a nation. For the physical vigor of our citizens is one of Americans' most precious resources. If we waste and neglect this resource, if we allow it to dwindle and grow soft, then we will destroy much of our ability to meet the great and vital challenges which confront our people. We will be unable to realize our full potential as a nation. Throughout our history, we have been challenged to armed conflict by nations who sought to destroy our independence or threatened our freedom. The young men of America have risen to those occasions, giving themselves freely to the rigors and hardships of warfare. But the stamina and strength which the defense of liberty requires are not the product of a few weeks' basic training or a month's conditioning. These only come from bodies which have been conditioned by a lifetime of participation in sports and interest in physical activity. Our struggles against aggressors throughout our history have been won on the playgrounds and corner lots and fields of America. Thus, in a very real and immediate sense, our growing softness, our increasing lack of physical fitness, is a menace to our security. However, we do not, like the ancient Spartans, wish to train the bodies of our youths merely to make them more effective warriors. It is our profound hope and expectation that Americans will never again have to expend their strength in armed conflict. But physical fitness is as vital to the activities of peace as to those of war, especially when our success in those activities may well determine the future of freedom in the years to come. We face in the Soviet Union a powerful and implacable adversary determined to show the world that only the communistic system possesses the vigor and determination necessary to satisfy awakening aspirations for progress and the elimination of poverty and want. To meet the challenge of this enemy will require determination and will and effort on the part of all Americans. Only if our citizens are physically fit will they be able to fully capable of such an effort. For physical fitness is not only one of the most important keys to a healthy body, it is the basis of a dynamic and creative intellectual activity. The relationship between the soundness of the body and the activities of the mind is subtle and complex. Much is not yet understood, but we do know what the Greeks knew, that intelligence and skill can only function at the peak of their capacity when the body is healthy and strong, that hardy spirits and tough minds usually inhabit sound bodies. In this sense, physical fitness is the basis of all activities in our society, And if our bodies grow soft and inactive, if we fail to encourage physical development and prowess, we will undermine our capacity for thought, for work, and for the use of these skills vital to expanding and complex America. Thus, the physical fitness of our citizens is a vital prerequisite to America's realization of its full potential as a nation and to the opportunity of each individual citizen to make full and fruitful use of his capacities. It is ironic that at a time when the magnitude of our dangers makes the physical fitness of our citizens a matter of increasing importance, it takes greater effort and determination than ever before to build the strength of our bodies. The age of leisure and abundance can destroy vigor and muscle tone as effortlessly as it can gain time. Today, human activity, the labor of the human body, is rapidly being engineered out of working life. By the 1970s, according to many economists, the man who works with his hands will be almost extinct. Many of the routine physical activities which earlier Americans took for granted are no longer a part of daily life. A single look at the packed parking lot of the average high school will tell us what has happened to the traditional hike to school to help build young bodies. The television set, the movies, and the myriad conveniences and distractions of modern life all lure our young people away from the strenuous physical activity that is the basis of fitness in youth and in later life. Now it is time. Of course, modern advances increasing leisure can add greatly to the comfort and enjoyment of life. But they must not be confused with indolence, with, in the words of Theodore Roosevelt, slothful ease, with an increasing deterioration of our physical strength. For the strength of our youth and the fitness of our adults are among the most important assets, and this growing decline is a matter of urgent concern to thoughtful Americans. This is a national problem and requires national action. President Eisenhower helped show the way through his own interest and by calling national attention to our deteriorating standards of physical fitness. Now it is time for the United States to move forward with a national program to improve the fitness of all Americans. First, we must establish a White House Committee on Health and Fitness to formulate and carry out a program to improve the physical condition of the nation. This committee will include the Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare and the Secretary of Interior. The executive order creating the committee will clearly state its purpose and coordinate its activities with many federal programs which bear a direct relation to the problem of physical fitness. Second, the physical fitness of our youth should be made the direct responsibility of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. This department should conduct, through its Office of Education and the National Institutes of Health, research into the development of physical fitness program for the nation's public schools. The results of this research shall be made freely available to all who are interested. In addition, the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare should use all its existing facilities to attack the lack of youth fitness as a major health problem. Third, the governor of each state will be invited to attend an annual National Youth Fitness Congress. This Congress will examine the progress which has been made in physical fitness during the preceding year, exchange suggestions for improving existing programs, and provide an opportunity to encourage the states to implement the physical fitness program drawn up by the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. Our states are anxious to participate in such programs to make sure that their youth have the opportunity for a full development of their bodies as well as their minds. Fourth, the President and all departments of government must make it clearly understood that the promotion of sports participation and physical fitness is a basic and continuing policy of the United States. By providing such leadership, by keeping physical fitness in the forefront of the nation's concerns, the federal government can make a substantial contribution toward improving the health and vigor of our citizens. But no matter how vigorous the leadership of government, we can fully restore the physical soundness of our nation only if every American is willing to assume responsibility for his own fitness and the fitness of his children. We do not live in a regimented society where men are forced to live their lives in the interest of the state. We are, all of us, as free to direct our activities of our bodies as we are to pursue the objects of our thought. But if we were to retain this freedom, for ourselves and for generations yet to come, then we must also be willing to work for the physical toughness on which the courage and intelligence and skill of man so largely depend. All of us must consider our own responsibilities for the physical vigor of our children and the young men and women of our community. We do not want our children to become a generation of spectators. Rather, we want to teach each of them to be a participant in the vigorous life. JFK, December 26, 1960. A little backstory to the article. There's a memo from the publisher attached to this, and I'd like to read that. It's by Sidney L. James. And the article was written before Kennedy actually took the oath of office, so he was the president-elect. And so he felt very compelled to make this statement before he even started his job officially, which I think says a lot about JFK. Memo from the publisher, December 26, 1960. On page 15 of this issue, we present an article by the President-elect of the United States. As far as we know, he is the first President-elect ever to write a major policy statement for publication in a magazine under his byline. You might be interested to know how this came about. Impressed by his family's lively interest in sport and recreation, the editors of Sports Illustrated approached candidate Kennedy last September to discuss the possibility of his writing on the subject in our annual year-end issue, with particular reference to the importance of sport in American life and the place of physical fitness in the development of the whole man. The candidate agreed that he liked both the forum and the subject. On the eventful day in Hyannisport, when his victory had just been conceded, he let the editors know that he was prepared to honor his pre-election commitment. So literally, on the day that he won, he was in touch with the editors and wanted to do this. I think that says a lot about JFK. Let's continue. This, he said, he would do immediately during his post-campaign sojourn in Palm Beach. But his life grew more complicated day by day. The baby Mrs. Kennedy had been expecting arrived a month early, causing the new father to leave Palm Beach for Washington before he could finish his writing task. Thus, the President-elect, having finished a step ahead of his opponent in the presidential race and a step behind in his race with the stork, found himself in a new race to meet a deadline for Sports Illustrated readers. All the time he was conferring and consulting and personally introducing one by one the newly chosen members of his official family. Despite all these pressures, Mr. Kennedy got his article in on time. We are enormously grateful to the President-elect for the way in which he honored his commitment to us, and far more important, to sport. We hope you will agree that his article proposes a program certain to advance the nation's prestige abroad and its strength at home. So I found that very compelling and fascinating about JFK. He really believed in this personally. It wasn't just a political thing to get more points. As a physical education fitness historian, I don't expect everybody to understand everything that I talk about and present, but I would like to take an opportunity to walk you through the article and some of the other things I'll be talking about in the months to come, so we can all get on the same page and have a better understanding of it. So I'm going to start back at the beginning. Kennedy was very versed in history in terms of the relationship of sound mind, sound body, the Greek history, how important that concept was to forming Western civilization, and how important learning from history is to moving forward with a compass and a guide. And so he made those comments right up at front in this article, citing Greek history and the importance of that balance, a mind-body-spirit balance, and that's important to note. Once again, the Krauss-Weber test is referenced here, and I've mentioned this in other sources over the years. Students of exercise science, kinesiology, or whatever the term of the day is, they basically don't know anything about Krauss-Weber. It's rarely taught today. I remember seeing a little diagram of it in a book in my undergrad PE program, and the professor never really went into it. I just remember seeing the picture of the test results. And so this is all stuff that I've learned after graduate school, and it's really important, especially if you're a fitness professional. You really need to dig into that. We were pathetically out of shape in the 1950s compared to European children. I mean, how much longer do we need to hear this message, right? Because certainly we didn't listen to it, because now look at us. But anyway, a lot of the article, he references back to the Cross-Weber test. It's a very important test. It takes a couple of minutes to administer. I learned it years ago. I've done pilots with it in corporate wellness and with kids, and we're not doing any better on it now than we were then. Actually, we're doing much worse. So again, it's basic, fundamental postural fitness that people need to not have back pain. That's what it's referring to. He talks over and over and over about physical vigor. And so if you think about physical vigor, it's not like the minimal amount of fitness to walk from your desk at work back to the couch. It's the vigorous life. He did not want people to be spectators. He wanted to be participants in the vigorous life. We've done the exact opposite today. We've got professional stadiums with hundreds of thousands of people in them every weekend, all sitting on their butts overeating bad food and not doing anything. We become a nation of spectators. We didn't listen. Okay? This is a big important point, and I think we need to start listening, because if not now, when? He talks about physical fitness being a national security issue. This is more and more prominent in the U.S. military news coming out about our obesity rates with soldiers coming into the program. The rejection rates are extremely high if you're trying to get in the armed forces now for mental or physical or both issues. So that hasn't changed, it's gotten worse. He talked about the formality of forming the committees and all these people and getting all the agencies involved, and I've got to tell you, it all failed, basically. The President's Fitness Council is there's nothing left of it, and it never really did what it was supposed to do. That doesn't mean that we can't make a great national effort and put it together now. If not now, when? We need it more now than we did when JFK was alive. But that's a little backstory on JFK, his personal life, his commitment to the vigorous life, and where it's gotten us from not listening. So I hope you do listen to this. I hope you take it to your heart, and it gives you a compass and a guide for the future to get yourself in shape as an American, and also take your children with you.